All right, ladies and gentlemen, Happy New Year. This is New York HR. We're now here in the future, which was the past or I don't know. We're in 2018. I'd like to welcome back to the show my good friend, and was it Mensch? Is it Mensch? I don't know.
Mensch.
Yes.
I'm the Mensch of HR, okay? The Mensch of HR.
The Mensch of HR. And of course, we'd love to welcome our first guest of 2018, LaToya Lynn. Welcome to the show, LaToya.
Hi, everyone. How you doing?
Doing well. We're doing okay. It's a new year. It's a New York. You know, we're all right. We're New York.
You have a tough time saying that New York thing. It sounds like you're carving up a loogie every time you say that.
New York.
So, LaToya, we're excited. Hey, by the way, shout out to Janine Truitt.
Yeah.
The Czarina of HR.
Yeah.
She said, listen, you got to talk to LaToya. And that's what we did. We spoke for like 2 minutes. I'm like, you're in. You're awesome.
Wow. That's awesome. Well, huge shout out to her, and thank you for reaching out to me. Very excited to participate and be a part of this.
Of course. Now, LaToya joins us.
By the way, this is a career changer for you, LaToya. You know that.
I believe a word he says. This will not change your career one bit. It may actually hurt your career.
I might get demoted.
We'll keep going. Yeah, you were on that show. You're out of here. So LaToya joins us from LivePerson, which is really interesting. Like a company that's been around in New York for about 20 years, listed on the stock exchange. It's one of those really successful tech companies that you don't hear a lot about. So we'll hear from LaToya, and she'll tell us about her experiences. She's the senior HR business partner. So we'll talk a little bit about what that means. But LaToya, you are born and raised in New York, right?
I am. I'm sort of like the last of the Mohicans. Currently live in Brooklyn. There's not too many of us New Yorkers originally that say that we're from New York. So I was born in Westchester and Mount Kisco for and I was there for like a minute, and then I moved to the Bronx, and I spent like
Mount Kisco.
A minute, Mount Kisco, right by the reservoir.
Exactly.
Right by the reservoir.
Yeah. It's like Westchester County, near like Katona, like up
there. Like, so I'm thinking in my head, you're by a reservoir. There are trees. Is it farmland? Like, what is it? What is it like?
It's a small like village. Like, think of like you know, like Little House on the Prairie almost, but with a little bit more infrastructure.
Like bigger House on the Prairie.
Bigger houses, obviously. Now they're like mansions there, but like they're like small town houses, one school, one library, one supermarket type deal.
Neat.
Yeah.
And then you moved to Brooklyn.
Well, yeah.
Bronx. She said the Bronx. You're not paying attention here in the new year, Anthony.
That should be a resolution. No. I moved to the Bronx shortly after I was born, and then spent like most of my formal years growing up in the Bronx, and then to Queens for like 13 years.
Wow. Where in Queens? Where in Queens were you?
Shout out to St. Albans, Queens.
I know St. Albans as well. That's where the VA is. I take my dad there once a month.
Oh yeah, St. Albans, and they talk like this in St. Albans.
They talk. They do. Yeah.
They talk like that. Awesome.
And now we're in Brooklyn.
So you were in Queens, and now you're now in Brooklyn, or
I'm now in Brooklyn. Yeah, I live in Bed-Stuy.
Bed-Stuy, awesome, fantastic. So Bronx. You're hitting all the boroughs. You got a Manhattan next, and then you got to come.
I actually had a moment in Harlem.
No kidding.
Yeah, I had a moment, maybe a year or so in Harlem. I lived everywhere but Staten Island.
All right, you got to come. You come to my house and visit.
Don't save yourself, LaToya. Save yourself. Don't.
As long as you don't go to Long Island.
Well, actually, Janine is from Suffolk, so there's
Suffolk County.
Yeah. So how did you get into HR? So you study HR. How'd you get in? We'd love to hear that story.
Yeah. So I actually got into HR mentally, like when I was maybe like.
What does that mean mentally?
Because the mental thing is like you think about HR and like what it could be, and what you thought it was, and then I physically started making it my attempt to actually doing it professionally. So when I was about like 16 years old, I decided I was working at the Joseph Papp Public Theater, my first job ever, Shakespeare in the Park, and I got fired. So the first time I've ever had, completely got fired. But through that, when I got through that process of being let go, I was thinking about the relationship between the manager and the organization, and like what that meant.
Well,
like,
why?
What is?
Let's hold on.
That conjures up joke upon joke. So how did that? You're 16 years old, LaToya. I don't know how much you read about it, but
did something happen when you got fired? Like, you don't have to go into details if you don't want to, but
yeah, no. I mean,
LaToya, if there's like a Me Too thing going on, we want to be the scoop here.
No, it wasn't a Me Too thing at all.
Okay.
Not at all. But what happened, what was going on was, I was being a 16-year-old. I was late. I was, not completing my job. Okay. Things like that. And I wasn't really taking the role very seriously, in a sense. Okay. I've gotten warning after warning because I was in charge of the celebrity section. And every time like the celebrities come, I was like the perfect personality. Like, hello, welcome.
Sure.
You can see that one.
Everything else, I was off. I was like, whatever. So then I ended up getting fired. And then through that process, I had thought to myself, I'm like, wow, like, how could I have made this relationship work differently? And what was, because when I was getting fired, they were explaining to me how my behavior was affecting the bigger picture.
Huh. Okay.
And then I thought about it like, well, what is that bigger picture?
16, right? You're 16 years old.
16, yeah.
That's pretty.
When I was
deep.
When I was 16, if I got fired, a few people, like, no.
By the way, LaToya, he still takes that approach with most situations.
It's true. It's very true.
Yeah, so I started my journey then. It's like the Buddha under the bonsai tree.
Cool. So now you're thinking about the interaction of companies and employees. So 16 years old, what's your next step? How do you then?
So years later, I ended up, I went to college. I was actually going to college to be an actress, and I was doing pretty well with it. But obviously, after a while, you don't want to be a starving artist. You decide to kind of like, what else can I do? So then I moved towards psychology, did really well in that, and then ended up working at a summer camp for 7 years. Every single summer to help myself throughout college and graduate school, whatever. And through that process, the woman that ran the camp, she may her soul rest in peace. She passed away a couple of years ago. She's a very strong mentor to me, and she had a degree in organizational psychology from Columbia. And she got that in the 70s. She said, like, this is, if you want to understand how organizations work, like, you should look into that. And I was like, okay. And then at that moment, I was like, wow, I never knew that this exists. I remember, and I've had jobs before then. Like, I worked in sales and things like that, in and out of that. And I always had like my eye on like what the organization needed and how to pivot myself. So I was able to be really successful as a salesperson. I'm talking about like Pier 1 or like Bloomingdale's and things like that I used to work at. Sure. And then I got my degree, and the rest is history. I got a dual master's in industrial organizational psychology and organizational behavior for my master's, and my undergrad, I did cognitive neuroscience. Hopefully one day I will be able to merge the two, which I did.
Amazing. And I can't even say it. I can't even.
Well, that LaToya, dictates one of the limitations of our show is Anthony's cognitive abilities. LaToya, where did you go undergrad? Where did you go for your master's?
So I went to Brooklyn College, the Harvard of Brooklyn, and that's why I ended up going to Brooklyn, moving to Brooklyn.
Makes sense.
I went there, yeah. And I was a psych major, and I wanted to work in a psych lab. For whatever reason, I had it in my mind that I should be
or HR, which we call the psych ward. So it was both appropriate, right?
Maybe most appropriate. Well, at that time, I was working. I had a work study job. Yeah. To clean the poop and urine and fecal matter for these lab animals, and also help them with their water. And I told the lab director, Professor Delameter, he's still there. Shout out to Professor Delameter at Brooklyn College. He was like, LaToya, this is not a glamorous job. I was like, but one day I'm going to be doing experiments. He was like, okay, whatever. Mind you, I had no background in neuroscience.
But this is classic. You were in an animal learning lab.
Yeah, I was an animal learning lab.
Pigeons or rats?
Rats.
See, I know that. I did the same thing in a pigeon lab.
Awesome.
Same thing. We'll talk about that offline. Fun stories.
Definitely. Yeah, sure. I would love to hear that. I mean, and I literally kind of just like worked at the lab, and then I became a research assistant, and then became a researcher there. And then I became the head researcher, like supporting all the students coming in and partnering on like how to really fully take care of a lab. And that helped me like pay through like half of grad school, which was awesome.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
That's great. And so, all right, so we're not going to yada half of your career, but now you're in HR. You're at. How did you get into LivePerson? So
what was that? What was your first true HR job? Was it at LivePerson?
It wasn't. My first true HR job was at Campus Kids.
What did you learn? Did you learn some good, bad, and ugly about HR there?
I did. Human relations is very interesting because people are very complicated. And politics do play a big part in, how organizations operate. So I remember when I was at Campus Kids, there was a lot of discourse between the leadership team. And because of the leadership team not getting together and organizing, we had to put a lot of like workshops together for them to kind of let it out and get productive on what's going on. And also think about this. This is a children's camp. This is a summer camp for kids.
Right.
So people don't really take it seriously, but the way this woman operated her camp was a business. Like we were scored on retention. So, and also retention, and also like children coming back year over year and extending. So when the numbers went down, we had to get together and create programs and processes that got people back, got the kids back into it, support the parents, and also, make sure our revenue stayed up. Which is very odd for a summer camp, but we're very successful.
Sounds like the right way to run that railroad. Absolutely.
Yeah, totally.
You have that experience. You probably do a couple of roles in HR and other companies, and now, like, how do you wind up at LivePerson? Yeah.
So so take a quick step back. So after my degree in neuroscience, and then my background in neuroscience and HR. The industrial organizational psychology and organizational behavior, I was like, there's a way to merge it, right? How do you merge it? So I ended up working at the Neuro Leadership Institute, which was that. What they did was brain-based coaching for HR professionals on performance management. And that was awesome. I did that for a while. And then I took a break because I wanted to really I always wanted to work in technology. I've always worked in fashion, education, childcare, and I wanted to get into technology. So
technology. What was interesting about technology for you, or was it just an industry you never had experience in?
Well, yeah, a good question. So technology now in like HR is something that we need to think about, like artificial intelligence and bot integration and HR practices is something that's new. And I've always wanted to get my foot in the door when it comes to that, and I feel like I spent my entire career getting my feet indoors, and like kind of maneuvering something for myself. So I got to LivePerson, and they're a messaging based company. So what they do is they offer messaging services for businesses to connect with their consumers. It's a platform, and
so
when you walk it,
So a couple of things. One is Steve just write down LaToya said AI. So I just want to make sure that's on the record. We have someone else saying AI in our.
Yeah, you say it as part of the alphabet song, but it's a different.
Right. For those of you that may not know, LivePerson probably if I would say 9 out of 10 chat conversations that you have on websites is powered by LivePerson. So just. And now you guys are getting into AI, from my understanding. But for the most,
we're also mobile messaging, so you're able to chat mobilely.
Yep. So now you're at LivePerson. What's your first role when you get there? Are you in HR?
Yeah. So my first one when I got there, I started off always as a business partner. So I started off supporting two teams, analytics and tech solutions. 2 teams I knew nothing about, by the way. And I was like, okay, I'll do it. So I figured out as much as I can about the team. 6 months later, I was supporting the entire customer success organization, which that team fell into, but it had several other departments. And then I helped build a change management restructuring activity that happened last year. And then from then, I got promoted to just being an HR business partner for the field. Then we hired a marketing, a CMO, a marketing manager that come in. He's amazing, to come and transform the organization. And him and I worked together, and we reorganize the team in a sense where they're the most productive team in the company, one of the most productive teams in the company. And then from there, I just got recently promoted to a senior HR business partner for the enterprise business unit that holds the core essential of our organization, our messaging vision for our customers, our top clients, and I partner with all of the executives on that level down.
So tell us, I mean, I hate to use you're crushing it,
Thank you.
That's because your daughter used it last night. Isn't that right, Anthony?
Exactly. I read it on Snapchat this morning.
Okay.
Oh no, Gary Vaynerchuk's book's coming out, crushing it. So anyway, so tell us what it's like to be a HR business partner at LivePerson. Like, what are you doing? What's your day look like? And then, part 2 of the question is, why do you think New York is interesting from an HR perspective? What's so unique about New York? What's difficult, good, bad, and the ugly, as Steve said before?
Yeah, so I can just start with the second question first, because it kind of pulls into the next one. I mean, doing HR in New York, I mean, New York is the epicenter of like transformational change. People come and they spend their life savings to come and be in this city. So there's a very unique energy about, being in New York, the hustle bustle, the grind, the hustling, it never sleeps, and you can eat and be anywhere, at the same time. So it's like, there's a variety of energy around that. And I think, in New York City, we get that type of talent, and obviously I support individuals across the world and across the country as well. But, where I sit in New York, people come in and they're just ready. Like they're ready to go. There is a drive and an energy when you work for a company like this, because everybody is trying to like really get in front and get in front and get in front. Like technology is so fast. It's very red ocean. So you kind of have to carve a new way for yourself. And then you got to stay like 20 steps ahead and pray that technology doesn't reach up to you, or catch up to what you're trying to do. So you're always moving laser fast, and agility is key. So some of the things that I do to kind of help myself get there, and I just want to say this to every single HR practitioner that's out there. I do have a team that I work with. I have an operations team, a recruitment team. It's not only me that's holding down LivePerson, but I think that, and shout out to them as well. They do such an amazing job. You have to be in front of the business. Every single time that I go to a client meetings, I see what our top accounts are talking about. I understand a business strategy. I know everything about what this organization needs to do to be very successful. And with that knowledge, I take my expertise and I create programs, processes, and I block red tape. So people can move, so these business leaders can move much faster to get to drive these very aggressive results that we need to get to. So anyone who's in HR, if you're not in any type of strategic business or management or leadership meeting, and you're not in front of that, then you can't be behind the scenes.
So how'd you get into those meetings? Like, because from my understanding, the CEO of the company, very people focused. Like, did you push your way? You talked about getting your foot in the door. Did you throw your foot in this door and said, hey, I want it? Like, how did you give some suggestions on how to get there? Because some HR folks want to get there and they just don't know how. Yeah.
I think ways to, one way to really get in the door, and I developed this practice, a bit earlier in my career at Advanced Star. That's a fashion trading company. They do trades at Magic Market Week and Project New York and Coterie, and they're more in the fashion space. But I used to, and the CEO can look at this video and see, I used to invite myself to meetings.
Just literally invite yourself.
I would just literally, there's nothing confidential that you can't be saying no more than HR can't find out or need to know. Yeah. I would actually just go. I would just go into the meetings and I would ask questions. I would talk to,
Anthony, I'll second that. That's one of the things that, again, I didn't come from HR. I grew up through engineering, and so we're sort of like the bulls in the china shop. It's either it's one way or the other, and the downside of inaction is less action. So it's better to ask for forgiveness than it is for permission.
That is true. That is very true. And I think after a while, people get to understand, like, wow, things can move much faster because I have all the information.
Right.
I can strategize with them as a thought partner as opposed to an admin, which I'm terrible at. No one should have me be an admin to anything because I won't be like, what?
Yeah. We all know. LaToya, we all know that.
Yeah.
We do.
What kind of so now you're in this business partner, you're in all these meetings, you become a strategic partner to some of these leaders. What are some of the programs that you're running, or a program that you would consider innovative, right? So we'll all agree on this video that HR is a little stagnant in terms of its innovation, and we'll talk about that maybe afterwards. But or maybe you want to start with that.
Yeah.
Or how's this one? The measure I use is when people who are also in HR go when they hear about what you did, they go, "Ooh, can you show me how you did that? Tell me how you did that."
Yeah.
So what's on your all-star list of programs and initiatives that people ask you about?
One program in particular that I'm the most proud of, and I think it has created a lot of change, in the organization, is what I did was I created with other, partner with other individuals, is create a orientation that is metrics driven. Mm-hmm. There are some certifications and things like that that people have with our, with certain, everyone kind of does certifications and testings and things like that. That's not new. But what I did to really ante it up next level is that because we're a technology company, I make sure that every single employee passes our product basic knowledge test. So every single individual that comes into our organization, whether you are in finance, whether you are the receptionists, facilities, and the salespeople alike, you deploy LiveEngage. You know what our product does for people. You get that, and you learn just as much as a sales professional would learn the first 2 days. You understand what our customer facing situation are, our customer offerings, any nuances within the business. And, we've scaled that program, and we started off with a 94% passing rate, and 81 is passing. And now at our second to last one we did, it was 99.6%.
So the good thing about LaToya is, a grassroots program like this is in response to a problem in the organization.
Yeah.
So take it further up the chain. What was the business problem that drove this into implementation?
Great. Individuals were not connected to the bottom line, right? Or a better terminology is they didn't understand where they fit in the ecosystem. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of focus on one aspect of the business, sales and marketing, to deliver, and then all the back end individuals were disconnected. Mm-hmm. So what we did was we brought everybody together. Everybody is needed. Everyone is excellent. Everyone must be excellent. Everyone must be experts, and you need to be able to drive in the front line. And a lot of times, as HR professionals, and I'd say this to anybody, all of my people that I work with internally, my client is not necessarily them. My client are the clients they serve. Those are my clients. Yeah. So I need to be able to push my expertise in direction to be able to serve our bottom line clients.
So Anthony, one more thing. There's just reminded me of probably one of the few business books I've ever liked. Goes back to 1981, and if you haven't read it, LaToya, it describes this stuff. Yeah, it's before Anthony was born. We know that one. Shut up. It was called The Great Game of Business by a guy named Jack Stack. If you've never read that one, The Great Game of Business by Jack Stack, he was the one who at least most publicly earliest on coined the phrase open book management. So where all the folks in in the manufacturing organization knew, from every tool and die maker knew what their output meant to the bottom line.
Yeah.
And so everyone had that connection, and he then developed training programs and whatnot accordingly.
Yeah. And that's where those are the roots. That's a great point. I actually will look up that book. I'm going to look it up on Amazon. I think that there is something to connecting individuals to what the bottom line is. Like, you're here to be a part of a greater mission outside of yourself, and you have this special puzzle piece to drive the business forward, whether you're client facing or not.
Yeah. And I do think there's only one drawback to that. And Anthony, you and I actually have talked about this. It's metrics that can be controlled by the individual, and those that can't be controlled by the individual. And so the problem with so many organizations, they put in metrics, they create a dashboard in which people are judged on things in which they have little or minimal control over.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you balance that at LivePerson? Because I know it's metrics driven. Some people just simply can't. You can't have everybody measured on the same baseline. So how do you implement like that, and a program like that that's effective for everybody without everyone feeling as if they're being, for lack of a better word, picked on?
Yeah, I mean, I think the way you deliver it is essential, right? And I think it's not like you come in as like a military situation. It's more like you learn about the product.
I love
like everyone comes in very robotic, artificial intelligence.
AI, yes, I knew that was coming.
and yeah, that's twice. And I mean, to your point, there are programs, and let me step back to my other job. So at the Neuro Leadership Institute, performance-based learning is, cognitively, we look at what we're purely measured on, right? And that's how we behave. So for example, if we have a rate scale, we focus on the rate instead of the actual behavior. If you want the behavior scale, then how do you really level up someone to get to the right, benchmark to be successful? So there's that balance in between. So coming into LivePerson, it's really working with the leadership team and those specific functions for them to help us and strategize with us to be able what is the best way to measure individuals that has the best service as subject matter experts in finance and whatever G&A function that's out there. And then that's what we build, so we can build the performance tools, the measurements, and the salespeople obviously are quota driven. So that's a different set of measurements as well. You can find ways to kind of stagnate it out.
So you build this orientation program. You're making sure that each employee really understands the product, the business that you're in. It sounds very much. There was years ago a mentor of mine, Vinny Stamio, who was the head of HR at Blue. They would bring people into orientation and talk about RASM and CASM, which is revenue per air seat mile or something like that, just explaining the airline business and how they make money. What impact did this have on your business? Did you see, because that's the thing, right? Like HR, it's so tough to go, yeah, we do this, and this is how it's helped our business. And of course, business is top line, bottom line, right? It's about productivity. Mm-hmm. It's about, so how was there any effect on the business? What did that look like?
Yeah, we have seen some effects in the business as far as engagement. We're actually, well, before I say that, I think that there is, because I'm in the room and I see every single class, right? But we're launching an engagement survey to really test that. So we'll have the actual data. And what we do is so interesting. We do things in small sprints. We don't throw the whole organization into one space. So
are you use a magic word there? Have you implemented Agile at LivePerson?
I did.
Ah.
I thought she said AI again. I thought that was the magic.
Of course you did, Tony.
So, so what do you speaking of Agile, I talk a lot about Agile and HR, right? So the idea of bringing HR into this century and not sitting on programs like performance management that we all know didn't work, and yet we kept doing it for decades. What are your thoughts? What does HR need to do? Well, one, do you feel the same? Do you feel like HR is stagnant in terms of innovation? And then what do you suggest for HR folks to get there? What do they need to do?
Actually, I want to throw out just another little wrench here. Since you're supporting employees around the world, you're supporting clients around the world. Your HR core centers here in New York. Are you happy with, is HR in New York as good as it could be? You know, is it good? Is it bad? Is it ugly? Is it stagnant? For real, this is, you're amongst friends here. Just it's a little chat.
I was just about to jump into yeah.
Okay, I lied. It's a couple of years, maybe one.
It's a couple of years.
I think that HR is extremely stagnant. I came into this industry as a young girl wanting to change it. I found it as white space. You know, all of my friends around me are artists. They're like dancers, very successful, you know, artists, designers, dancers, singers, whatever.
You have that air about you, by the way.
Oh, thanks.
No, for real. There's a performance. There's two of us. We're just meat and potatoes. You have this elegance about you, which we can only dream about.
Thank you. It's very kind of you. Well, and to that point, what you're just hearing, you know, it's that. That's what I want to bring to HR. I want to bring fresh elegance, thoughtfulness, but like, you know, it'll rub. You know, people should feel a little uncomfortable on both ends, I think, for it to work. And what I mean by that is, you know, I've been searching for such a long time, and there's sometimes I'll find really cool things. Like I joined ODNNY for a while, that was interesting. Yeah. And then I joined SHRM for a little while, that was interesting. And then I went to Work Human last year, and that was interesting. And what I find a common theme is, it's like, it's almost like a therapy session for HR practitioners. Like everyone's coming in and kind of complaining about how hard it is and what they could do. And granted, there's a lot of amazing things that can come out of all these different programs and opportunities. But the first thing that I suggest for us to do as an industry is to open it up to the world. Like we need to have a conference where we have business leaders, employees, regular people that are not HR and HR coming together and strategizing on how to grow businesses. People have.
Well, you know, it's a great, you know, the irony is that there have been sub-functions within traditional HR that have been doing this for a couple of years. Recruiting, TNA, we've been doing this for several years. There's a conference called Talent 42 out in Seattle, which is, it's all about tech recruiting. But you know, John Blastalika, who was behind the Bar Raiser program at Amazon, amongst other things, he and his team bring together developers and hiring managers and all these other people. So it's not a simple, you know, silo view of the function and the challenges that are core to it. You know, I got to give SHRM credit. This is the first time I am not a member of SHRM. I might have been for a couple of minutes, but you know, there's a new president, Johnny Taylor, who is damn good, and he sees the disconnect between you know, what has happened in the past, you know, the policy and procedure police. And where it needs to go to continue, you know, being a function that adds, you know, value to all levels of the organization. I mean, what are you doing? You should speak. You should keynote them and say, "Yo, Marty, what are you doing?"
Yeah, I should. Shout out to SHRM. Hit me up.
Now, shout out to Mary Kaylor, Kaylor.
Yeah,
you'll get an intro after this.
Yeah, we'll tag her on the.
We'll tag her on this one.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think the biggest thing is, you know, when you look at human resources, and there are a lot of amazing professionals out there that have done this craft very well and gotten us to a place where we are now, you know, to where we can say, okay, what can we do differently? But I think what I want HR people to do is that whole aspect of feeling valuable. Like we are valuable. like that's what it is. We are very valuable in what we do. And it is a necessity for an organization to be successful to have us there. So I think there's that whole asking for permission type feel that we have as practitioners, instead of going in and saying like, no, we're going to lead a business like this because it's compliant, it's legal, and it's productive.
Right. Yeah. Right. I also, so going back to what Steve talked about, so most of the recruiting events that I see Steve at, he's at a bar and they're drinking. So I don't know what the hell.
You're looking for a job? I think I might have.
You know, Anthony, this is jealousy. This is borough jealousy.
Yeah.
You know, we have this inferiority complex that everybody on Staten Island has.
And they're at bars drinking. No one talks about anything. It's
Anthony, like, whenever you want to come to a conference, I'll get you a speaking gig.
Okay? That's great. I don't want to bore people. So
there's that too. Yes.
Most of these conferences are about the basics of HR. So it's things that you can Google search, things that are just like the knowledge. It's like what's happening in the world today. Like knowledge is great, but it's not creativity, innovation. These are the things that people are going to start needing to know, not what the FMLA rules are. Like who gives a shit about FMLA? You can go Google search that. Like I don't like.
Well, Anthony, come on, and then that's being real dismissive of the complexity of some of these things,
which is very important. We do need to have. We do need to have a set of. We do need a foundation, right? A strong one. Okay, and I feel like when you look at HR, we shouldn't look at human resources as one lump thing. There are different aspects of HR, right? And I feel like for better or worse, I feel like certain departments should stay where they are, in a sense of compliances, regulations, and things like that. It needs to be solid, right? But what I'm really thinking about are the center of excellences, and that's like the HR business partner world, the talent acquisition world, the learning and development world. Those world with very clunky processes sometimes that really get in the way of managers or leaders really taking hold of it. Like I tell my leadership team regularly on my team, on my HR team, is like, if we need a workshop to do it, especially performance reviews, don't do it because it's too hard. It's too long.
Yep.
Simplify it. Agile. Yeah. I'm bored. Would you do this?
I think you're right. I mean, you think about separating the compliance with the HR business partner stuff. But if I go on LivePerson's career site right now and look at one of your HR business partner job descriptions, you're looking for that FMLA. That's the problem that I have with this. Is like to get to that business partner status, you don't necessarily need to know that. No, who knows the FMLA?
I disagree with that. Actually, I disagree with that. I think that you have to have. You can't replicate me. I am who I am, right? And not every business partner thinks like that. But I think that you have to have a core understanding of the foundations, right? You need to go in and you need to be able to know what you can tweak, what you can flow, and what you can like move very quickly. Because if you don't know that stuff, you can end up making mistakes, like hiring someone in a place where we don't have any compliances set up and have issues. You know what I mean? You can get the body in faster, but then if you get them in the door, we legally can't keep them.
Well, this is where. Yeah, this is where Anthony and his being so high up in the organization sometimes misses out on the tactical elements of it. What he was referring to is the whole TA is we've gone on our own special route. There are not only there are conferences, but there are associations that are being built that focus on the special needs, and frankly, they're all performance based.
Yep.
If you're hiring an HR business partner. Quite frankly, the document, it's not even a recruiting document. It's a compensation document. I could take almost every LivePerson job description, take out LivePerson and put in references to your competitors, and it would work just the same for them. So, without the context of performance there, this is what in the first 90 days, this is the stuff that keeps, the business managers awake at night that you're going to have to solve. Now let's talk about how you've solved those specific problems.
Right.
But that goes to, so much in HR is historically dated. It's policy, it's cut and paste, it's policies and procedures.
Exactly.
I mean, that's where, by the way, great game of business. I don't say this one thing, my bad word for the chat. Jack Stack said, here in Missouri, he says we have a saying, shit rolls downhill. And when HR is minimally effective or non-effective, it's because the folks up at top are making it so. Yep. And in my opinion, that makes what you've done, being able to get in, crawl up, smack them around, and then push the good stuff down again, more impressive. And that's a behavior that we just don't typically see in HR. You don't see the strong personalities that you see on here.
LaToya, it's okay to go what? Like sometimes when Steve goes on the rant like that, you're
no, I'm totally following him. I think you know what? I really like what they're doing. I like what my leaders are doing. I'm interested in it. I don't work at companies just to do HR. I work at companies to understand, to see if I'm in love with what the product is.
Come on, Tony, do it. Come on, bada bing. Do that.
Bada bing.
Do that, bada bing.
Yeah.
You know, I don't. So yeah, so that's probably why that's why I'm able to really build these relationships, is because I can speak the lingo some.
Yeah, I mean, I think you, like you said, you are unique. I think you truly are, because I think most HR folks are really well versed in those HR, you know, tactical FMLA, and they're being asked to solve these very complex business problems. And I think that is the major problem we have. So anytime you go to a conference with SHRM, they talk about the basics, right? We're still talking about FMLA rules and performance management, where we should be thinking about how do we bring agile or design thinking into HR so we can solve some of these complex problems. And
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how else way to start, right? If you, I have no else way to start. I don't really believe in having too much executive sponsorship on my programs, because I don't need anyone to sponsor this. It needs to be done.
Yeah, right.
The company needs it.
Exactly. And you get disappointed in these conferences because you're like, you go to HR. I'm gonna call out HR Disrupt because it has the name Disrupt in it, and Steve knows I love that name. And you go there and it's just like, this is the same old shit. Like,
there's nothing. The only thing that's being disrupted are the 4 hours in your day that you'll never get back.
I've never been.
But LaToya, last word for you. Like, what, you know, if you're now talking to a younger LaToya and you're sort of taking all these experiences and your knowledge, you know, what would you advise that younger you or the younger HR person that, you know, is just starting out in this space?
Yeah, I would say get to work on time.
Very nice.
No, actually, if I didn't get fired, you know, I wouldn't have, you know, wouldn't have been in this position, I don't think. So what I would tell the younger HR in me, you should fail. Failing is good.
We all know that one.
Failing is actually great. And when you fail, you know, that's fine. It's the process of transforming the poison into medicine. That's when you get the real learning. That's when the real journey comes up. So focus on the journey as opposed to the actual failing event. And also to my HR, you know, peers and professionals out there, like, do something really risky. Show up to a meeting that you were invited to, that you know you belong in. Do your programs in small sprints, agile. You know, test case, get some business around it, some metrics around it, and then say it's gonna work. And then the third thing is be courageous.
I like it. I know. I love it. I think that's, you're absolutely spot on those. And I think it's great advice to folks. I love the sprint idea. It's the ability to create these programs and fail and then reinvent and do something different. Like, the problem is we'll create something and then we know it doesn't work, but yet we'll just keep doing it and doing it and doing it for failure. So I love that. So we're almost at the hour. So this is the portion of our show where we would ask you.
It's the food portion of our show.
Favorite pizza by the slice location is, but in your case, you don't like pizza.
I don't like pizza.
I don't like pizza.
I know.
It hurts right now.
I'm the.
So you don't like pizza. What is it? I have to dive in a little bit because it's
please.
Because everyone, like, what is it about?
Staten Island Tony can't handle that somebody is not a fan of the national food of his borough.
National food of borough. So it's not like I'll eat pizza. I'll consume it, but I won't have a craving for it. I'll never go get it. I never just want a slice. I'm on the other side. I'm the other New Yorker, and they exist. We exist. We're Chinese food.
Chinese.
I love Chinese food.
Okay. Best Chinese food. Actually, I'm going to throw a place at you. It's on Mott Street.
Okay.
It's walk down a couple of stairs. Wohops.
Huh.
Wohops on, I think it's 113 or 117 Mott Street.
113, 117 Mott Street. I have to check it out.
Yeah.
My thing is,
I'll go there with you.
Yeah, let's do it. You're buying
Okay.
though.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Work,
I'm fine with that. That works.
Well, my thing is, I like Chinese. I'm from, the hood, Bed-Stuy, do or die, and we love our like ghetto Chinese food with the bullet mirror glass, and you order through, and they yell and back in Chinese. Like you order for one thing, and it's a long Chinese thing. Like how chicken and broccoli will take 2 minutes to explain, but they do it, and they know exactly how to make it right, and that's what I love to eat.
That's great. And what's your favorite dish? Is it chicken and broccoli? What's your dish?
I always love. Okay, you're gonna laugh.
No, we won't.
Okay, and I actually don't eat this very frequently. I'm trying to be more healthy.
We promise we won't laugh. We promise.
I'm trying to be more healthy, but if I really crave something, it's 4 chicken wings, fried hard, cut up with French fries with hot sauce, ketchup, and barbecue sauce over everything.
Wow.
So the no calorie version of it then.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay.
Low carb.
The other one, the low cal is with asparagus and broiled chicken.
Terrible. Yeah.
Oh, too funny.
Awesome. You know what? Especially in those places, I know you're exactly what you're talking about. The general section is always fantastic in those.
Yes, that too.
Absolutely. Well, LaToya, thank you so much. I mean, the no pizza thing, we're going to have to talk about it some other point offline.
Please forgive me.
Maybe bring it to
Anthony, get over it. Do you see me getting verklempt over her not being able to ask the bagel question? I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
I'm fine.
Well, maybe she's got Long Island pizza. Maybe that's the problem. So,
that's the problem.
LaToya, I want to thank you for joining us. We're a bunch of knuckleheads, and you're so much smarter than we are. So thank you for sharing your knowledge with us. Steve, any parting words there from you?
No, I'll call you tomorrow. We'll make a Chinese food date.
There we go. LaToya, for our audience before you leave, any parting words?
Make the day great. Let's do it.
There. Make the day great.
Make the day great.
Thanks, LaToya.
Make the day great.
Bye.
Bada bing.
Bada bing.